Act 2, the muscular system. Muscles are special tissues that relax and contract, allowing our bodies to move. The human body has more than 640 skeletal muscles, responsible for all this moving and shaking. And there are even more muscles on the inside, like the visceral muscles that line our organs and the cardiac muscles that help our heart beat. But let's talk about those skeletal muscles first. Muscles, nothing more than muscles. Okay, maybe some tendons too. So here are the muscles in the head and face, the frontalis and temporalis. The masseter is the jaw muscle. Here's the shoulders with the trapezius, deltoid, and pectoralis major, or pecs. You've got arm muscles, the triceps and biceps. You've got extensors of the wrist and fingers. And then you're looking at core muscles, including the external oblique, abdominal, and groin muscles. Legs have the sartorius and quadriceps. On the back, you can also see the gluteus maximus and hamstring. And then in the calves, the tibialis anterior is on the front of your leg, and the triceps surae is on the back, which you can also see here. The Achilles tendon is attaching the muscles of your leg to your heel. Let's learn about them. The masseter, or jaw, is the strongest muscle. Chomp. With all the muscles of the jaw working together, our molars, back teeth, can chomp down with a force of 200 pounds. So when we chew, our molars are coming down on the food with the force of 20 bowling balls. In the face, there are about 40 muscles. They work together to give us a whole lot of facial expressions. The tongue is a muscle too, and it never rests. Even as we sleep, the tongue pushes saliva to the back of the throat to be swallowed. I can't catch a break. Luckily for most of the skeletal muscles, they work in pairs. 640 divided by 2 is 320 pairs. Say you need to bend your elbow. You'll need your bicep and triceps. I'm the bicep, and I'm the triceps. Your bicep contracts, pulling your forearm up. Want to straighten your arm again? Your bicep relaxes while your triceps contracts, pulling your forearm back down. Go team muscle! When muscles move, they may look larger or smaller, but they are simply changing shape. However, exercise can strengthen muscles over time, and that might make them bigger. Let's see what goes on inside a skeletal muscle. Looking inside skeletal muscle. Skeletal muscles are bundles of, bundles. Each muscle contains bundles or groups of smaller muscle fibers, and those bundles contain the even smaller muscle cells. You can see that here. Here's connective tissue wrapped around it and blood vessels supplying oxygen. Here's some bundles of muscle fibers, which are made of muscle cells. The blood vessels supply the muscles with oxygen and take away waste. Nerves carry out instructions from the brain. The connective tissue tapers to form the end of the muscle and also the tendon. Tendons attach muscles to bone. You might have found tendons at the end of the meat on a chicken drumstick or wing. The stringy part that's tough, that's a tendon. Looking inside, muscle cell. This is what the muscle fibers look like on a cellular level. Even this tiny, the muscle still has to be stretchy so it can contract and relax. Here's the nucleus inside each muscle cell. Remember how ligaments connect bone to bone? Tendons connect muscles to bone. Remember me? Tendons and ligaments are made mostly of collagen, that flexible material also found in bones. Tendons that connect the biceps muscle to the radius and ulna bones of the forearm. So here's where it's muscle, and the tendon is this part. Just as we've seen with bones, muscles can get injured too. Oof, I've got a sore shoulder. A strain happens when a muscle is stretched too far. This is common in the neck, back, and legs, especially after lots of exercise or when playing a new sport. A sprain happens when a ligament between bones is overstretched or torn. This will usually hurt right after the injury, and there may be bruising or swelling around the sprain. Both strains and sprains need rest to heal. A sprain might also need a splint, a cast, or a bandage. A doctor or coach might recommend that you RICE your injury. This stands for rest, ice, compression, and elevation. Most of the time, a strain will take about 1 week to heal, while a sprain may take 3 to 4 weeks to heal. Warming up and cooling down before and after any exercise is a good way to avoid strains, sprains, and sore muscles. Here are a few ways to stretch some important muscle groups. This stretch extends the lower back muscles and hamstrings, and you don't have to worry about balancing because you are lying down. The calves, back, and hamstrings, again, all benefit from this stretch, which you can do on each side, while this stretch extends the quadriceps. Pulling your arm toward you will stretch the deltoid and shoulder muscles. This is another stretch that works your back muscles. It's good to stretch your back. It might not seem like it works very hard, but those muscles are working all the time, helping you stand and sit up. Including light exercise in your stretching routine is good too. Try a little jogging in place or doing jumping jacks. Now that I'm all warmed up, let's talk about muscle function. Phew! You might have heard this question at Thanksgiving: white meat or dark meat? When we eat animals, like turkey, beef, fish, etc., we mostly eat the muscles. Even though our skeletal muscles all move the same way, some have different jobs when it comes to movement. Some muscles are better for quick bursts of movement, like sprinting. Some muscles are better over long periods of exercise, like walking. In a turkey, the pectoral muscles, white meat, are good for short bursts of intense movement, like flying. And the thigh muscles, dark meat, are used for everyday low-endurance movement, like walking. Humans are the same way. Our pectorals and thigh muscles do the same kind of things that turkeys do. Except, humans can't fly. Just don't eat me. Or me. Sometimes, when you are growing, your muscles might hurt for what seems like no reason. I don't get it. I stretched. These are called growing pains. Not all kids get growing pains, but those who do usually get them from ages 3 to 5 or 8 to 12. Growing pains are caused in part by growing, but not the way you might think. Whenever there's a star, it means go look for the footnote that goes with it. This one says, hormones are actually responsible for those pesky growing pains, but we'll get to them in the endocrine system. All right, growing pains are caused in part by growing, but not the way you might think. At night, your body is hard at work, especially as you grow. That is why growing pains strike at night. They often feel like aches and pains in the legs, in the thighs, in the calves, or behind the knees. The good news is that growing pains go away by morning. Another muscle pain you might get is sometimes called a Charlie horse. Yay? Nay. So it's a joke. This horse has a name tag that says, "Hello, my name is Charlie." But a Charlie horse is actually a nickname for a muscle spasm or cramp, an involuntary, accidental contraction, squeeze of 2 or more muscles. So a Charlie horse is when 2 or more muscles are accidentally squeezing, but they shouldn't be. A muscle spasm will often feel like your muscles are tied in a knot. Yow! Possible causes include overexercise, not stretching before or after exercise, dehydration, and salt imbalance. So you better take good care of me. If you remember to stretch every day and drink plenty of water, you should be able to avoid Charlie horses. Well, excuse me. All of the muscles so far have been skeletal muscles. And skeletal muscles are voluntary muscles. Voluntary means on purpose. Like if you volunteer for something, you're going to do it on purpose. So these are voluntary muscles. That means that they need the brain to tell them to contract, relax. But there are two other types of muscles, and they are both involuntary muscles. That means they work without you having to think about it. Here's the brain on vacation, c'est la vie. Even though involuntary muscles are still monitored by the brain, you just don't have to think about moving them. Your brain does it on its own. Come on, I want a vacation. These two types of involuntary muscles are cardiac muscle, found only in the heart. Cardiac muscle is what makes your heart beat. Okay, guys, cardiac means heart. So if you know the singer Cardi B, her name is a pun, but one way to read it is Cardi means heart. So that's kind of adorable. You can also think about in Spanish, the word for heart sounds kind of like cardio. All right, visceral muscles. These muscles are found in the intestines and abdominal organs. When your stomach moves food around, it's using the visceral muscles in the stomach. All muscles are fueled in part by oxygen. Here's an oxygen molecule reporting for duty. This is why we need to breathe more during exercise. So, when the musculatory system is working hard to move the body, where do we get that oxygen to do all that moving and shaking? Ready for the next chapter? Act 3, the respiratory system.